This is common fact sample 3 to beat IRS levies and IRS levy threats. It deals with the threat of an IRS levy and what you can do about it. Common fact sample 3 deals with threats to levy made by the IRS. Threats to levy. And I want you to reference that part of your materials that address the ever escalating IRS threat letters. And recognize that just because the IRS includes a statement in a letter early on that says that it can levy your assets, it doesn't mean that that is going to happen immediately. In the long run, the critical issue is when you receive a threat that the IRS is going to levy, you have to understand where in the process that IRS levy threat is. The law requires the IRS to follow very specific steps before it can levy a taxpayer to collect delinquent taxes. And the final step is the final notice of your right to a hearing. And that time period, which is extended to you so that you can demand your right to a hearing, has to expire before the IRS can issue a levy. And if you demand a hearing, then the IRS cannot issue a levy during the time that your hearing is proceeding. That's critical. This fact setting, which is common to many taxpayers currently, focuses on the reality that many taxpayers and families went through years of disrupted difficulties, where their income was upset, where they had to do whatever they needed to do to try to raise enough money day after day and month after month to keep their bills paid. And unfortunately, they fell behind in taxes. They fell behind in filing their tax returns, and they fell behind in making their tax payments. And after they were able to gather themselves and work with their tax return preparer and file the tax returns that they hadn't filed on time in the years just recent to that, they realized that they owed more than what they ever expected. And they started making it good. They sent payments in. Now, fact setting 3 deals with the reality that the IRS left hand doesn't always know what the IRS right hand is doing. And it deals with the common reality that the destructive features of IRS levies can undermine all your good efforts and your commitment to improve your life in the future after having gone through these terrible economic times. In our fact setting number 3, these folks are finally getting to the point where they're going to be able to reestablish their farm and their business effort. And they don't want to lose their bank's financing. And an improper levy, an aggressive levy, a heavy-handed levy is going to embarrass them. It's going to lower the perspective that the bank has about them, and it's also going to disrupt their necessary cash flow because they have to pay for what is needed early on every spring for what it is that they need to cultivate in order to make money by the time the harvest is available to them in the fall. So they request a hearing once they receive their final notice of a right to a hearing. And the first thing that they say is, we've been sending in our payments and nobody's giving us any credit for it, and by gosh, why would you levy us when we're sending payments in anyway? And the appeals conferee is going to listen to that because they want to do what is right and fair for the taxpayer, because it's their job. They're supposed to follow the law, and the law recognizes that taxpayers have disruptions in their financial life, in their personal life. So the conferee is going to establish a recognized system approach that will prohibit the IRS from issuing that levy. The taxpayer's only responsibility is to educate the conferee. Educate the conferee of what money is necessary and when, and why it would be terribly destructive for a levy to issue. And the conferee will also track those payments that were actually made. So, pay attention to the threats to levy just like they were real levies. And if you do that, you're going to be able to work within the system and work your way through the threat and handle your tax difficulty in a way that it doesn't become an explosive atomic tax crisis. And that concludes our discussion on Common Fact Sample 3 to beat IRS levies and IRS levy threats. Go to my general discussion relating to levies for other information before you proceed any further. Thank you.